Wish you were one of those influencers with raving fans who binge on your every word, consume all your content, buy everything you have to sell, and demand even more? Then stay tuned while Authority Magazine columnist and BuzzFeed contributor Tracy Hazard shares strategies, tips, and tactics from top videocasters, podcasters, authors, and social influencers on creating that bingeable factor. Now, let's join Tracy as she explores how to rise above all the digital noise with the binge factor.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Binge Factor. I'm Tracy Hazard, and I'm actually talking YouTube today. We're talking YouTube podcasters. We're talking to Desiree Martinez. She is a longtime and award-winning social media creative content creator. She's worked with hundreds of businesses and brands to help them grow their business with better content marketing. She's a YouTuber, a podcaster, a speaker, a business owner. Desiree knows what it takes to help your business grow, build a community. Really important, and get leads through a very noisy newsfeed. She's the author of Innovation from Desperation. I love that title. The Unfiltered Failures and Success of an OG Social Media Marketer. I love that title. It just makes you want to read it, doesn't it? And what I've learned from listening to Women of YouTube, which is Desiree's podcast, is that diversity of the podcasters out there is so unusual. It's not just this YouTube influencer we think of, the ones that our kids are looking up to. My daughter wants to be a YouTuber. And it's not just that model. These are people doing what we talk about in podcasting all the time, where we're using our podcasts to be business lead generation. They're using YouTube for so many different output purposes, for so many different outcomes and goals in building businesses, in monetizing in different ways. And Desiree is going to talk about that. So I'm super excited to have her on the show. Interested to talk about this YouTube podcasting dynamic. Is there a lot of differences? Is it easier? Is it harder? And really get into this idea of YouTube for podcasters and YouTube to podcast, or the other way around, right? Podcast to YouTube. Who knows which way you're going to go? But excited to talk to Desiree Martinez about that. Desiree, you know what? I'm really excited to talk YouTube today because we got a lot of podcasters who are videocasters as well. Yes. And you're a YouTube expert. So we are going to pick your brain today.
Oh, I'm ready. I hope you're ready.
You're ready for it.
Meaty brain.
Well, good. So you start a lot of your shows with why YouTube. So
yes,
everyone. And I want to start with why YouTube, but then we're going to go immediately why podcast as our next thing. So why YouTube?
And I'm going to answer the way a lot of my people do. Why not YouTube? I think YouTube is the best way for you to build a relationship with a very focused audience while also exuding your personality and who you are as a person. I really think that YouTube is this great, fantastic bridge of solving problems while also building and connecting and relating to someone at the same time. I can tell you, and you can just really see the different kinds of people that come to me based on how their comments are. Like, I'll get comments from people that'll be like, you talk too fast, or you give great information, or I just love what you have going on, or like, why are you talking still? Like, it's really the full gamut. You can really tell that, like, obviously I'm not everyone's cup of tea, which is totally fine. But it's one of those things, it's like, but I can find my people, and more importantly, my people can find me.
Interesting. So why podcasting? And did you start with a podcast at the beginning, or how long did you have YouTube before you started podcasting?
My podcast actually came about in a really weird way. At least I think it's weird. So I've had a podcast before and it just wasn't working out right. I think that my industry was just too oversaturated and it just wasn't hitting the notes I wanted to hit. But when it came to the Women of YouTube podcast, it actually came about by accident. I'm a social media marketer. Like, that's what I've been doing for over 10 years. I'm a very OG in this space. And so social media, going to this event called Social Media Marketing World is like my mecca. It's like the one gigantic thing I got to do every single year. And
not this year, unfortunately.
Funny story, Social Media Marketing World was the last thing I got to do before it locked down. Like, social media marketing finished March 3rd, and it was like March 6th that everything fell apart. It was crazy.
So you did get your fix this year.
I did. So in 2000, it was like the last time I got to see the outside world. But in 2019, 2018, Social Media Marketing World which is put on by Social Media Examiner, went all in on YouTube. They're like, we're dedicated to YouTube. We're stopping all of these live streams. We're cutting back here, but YouTube is where we're going to go. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited about this. Well, they announced their lineup for their YouTube speakers for 2019, and it was all men. Don't get me wrong. The guys that they got are the best. Like, they're the cream of the crop. They've got great information. I'm friends with a lot of them. They do awesome stuff. But representation matters. And when you have a demographic of your event, and marketers are 55 to 60% women, I was like, why are there no women people talking about YouTube? And so I had reached out to them. I was like, hey, what do you think about doing this panel, like a Women of YouTube panel for marketers, like why you should work with them YouTubers, what you can expect, what the benefits are. And they were like, we really love this, but we're already full. We can't like add in more stuff. You should do this as a live stream. So I was like, okay, great idea. So I did it as a live stream the week before Social Media Marketing World in 2019, and I partnered up with TubeBuddy. Now, TubeBuddy is like your best friend on the road to YouTube success. They're a fantastic way to like take your YouTube channel from like just a place that you house your videos to a place where they're going to get found through analytics, data, testing, all kinds of really great stuff. It's like level up of like availability. So TubeBuddy, so they had the audience. At the time, my YouTube channel only had like 1,000 people, and I was like, this is too awesome for my small channel. But TubeBuddy at the time had like 200,000 subscribers, and they were all about it. And so we did this panel. It was me and 4 other YouTube women who were all from that did different things. One's a lifestyle, one did tech, one did business, and one did chatbot coding. And so it's like, I want a really diverse kind of group of women, and it was amazingly successful. I had people that came up to me at Social Media Marketing World. They're like, that was the best thing. I want more. I kept getting DMs from people. They're like, when are you going to do this again? And then TubeBuddy was like, do you want to come back and do more interviews with this? I was like, all right. So clearly there was a need, but I did not want to make another YouTube channel because y'all, I feel like I need to like, if I had to have something that I tattooed on my forehead, it would be YouTube is work. YouTube is a lot of work, in fact. And it's because it's a whole thing. Like, as someone who runs a social media marketing agency and is a full-time YouTuber, like, is work. Okay. But, and so I was like, I can't take on another YouTube channel. And on top of it, it would require a lot of travel, which I wasn't opposed to, but I'd have to like go to people, and it was a whole thing. But what I can do is a podcast. I can be up in people's earbuds every single week. I can do great interviews. I can like batch record the interviews out. I can reach out to my industry friends and have them refer me to other people. And we could just talk about what it's like being a female YouTuber in today's modern world. And we really dive into a lot of the questions of like, why YouTube and how do you use it? What does business look like? What is it like to get trolled on YouTube? Like, so many women have all of these different things, all these different stories, but there are some things that kind of happen universally across the board that actually stop women from creating on YouTube.
It's something I want to mention because I was listening to one of your episodes with Karen Carr, YouTube and real estate. And Karen was saying, about, outreach. And it occurred to me that women in YouTube are experiencing the same thing that us women in podcasters, which is we get a lot of trolls. We actually get a lot of people who harass us, whether it's, in comments in various places. And I actually recommend to my clients on their blogs to turn the comments off, because all you ever get are nasty comments about, oh, I don't like the sound of your voice. And my answer is, well, don't listen. But I think that happens to YouTubers as well. And I'm nervous because I have a daughter who's she has a poster in her room that she had done at school last year that says future YouTube educator. And
nice.
All she wanted this past year was to start a YouTube channel. And I finally had to let her because she was bugging me so badly. And so my big fear is that it invites all of those nasty comments. And it's such an odd thing because the male podcasters I have don't receive that at all. Do you see that as the same thing? Any
100%.
balance?
It's 100% the same. Now, if you were to ask my fellow male YouTube educators, they'd be like, well, we deal with our own form of flack. I'm like, I hear you, but no one goes into your videos expecting you to be a specific way, to look a specific way, to present yourself in a specific way. There isn't there's not a woman splaining to you of what's going on. Like I've been mansplained out of speaking opportunities and off of stages, and because I'm not, prim and proper and quiet or like pinned up and put together, or I didn't have the kind of social proof that they wanted, and all these things that are like, that's right for some audiences, but at the other times it's like, everyone's different, and having a variety is helpful. And within my male YouTube educator space, they're all different. They all have a different way that they connect or communicate. Some people, just like the aggressiveness of it, the information of it, the hustle of it, the relatability with being a dad with 7 kids of it. Like, there's all these different things around it. But at the same time, when you go to an event, no one's asking them, oh, where are your kids? Who's watching them?
Who's watching your children? Oh my gosh, I've gotten that before.
It's just like that.
It gets very personal, right? And it hits you like you don't look right, you didn't dress right, your hair was messy today, or your roots were showing.
For example, a man can wear the same thing in every video. No one says anything. A woman outfit repeats, and people be like, we've seen that before.
Yeah.
And like right now, I know a lot of us women YouTubers, depending on where we live, like I live in Phoenix. I don't leave my house because I live in Phoenix. Other people live in less crazy COVID induced places, but like I'm having a serious like roots issue. And it's one of those things they're like,
they shut us down too. You can kind of see mine creeping in. So
it's time to go to the salon, Desiree. Like, nah, it's time for you to shut up and go away, commenter. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know where it is about women in the internet where it became okay to be judgmental and critical at every chance that they got, but it's one of those things. But in pairing with, like, you talked about your concern about your daughter who wants to be a YouTuber, and concern about women becoming YouTubers or video podcasters, you have to remember there's so much more good than bad. And, when it comes to kids too, like 1 in 6 kids wants to be a YouTuber. And it's because you have to think, when we were kids, 1 in 6 of us wanted to be an actor or a singer or a pop star. And so it's just kind of like the equivalent of it. But both require an extreme amount of work and dedication. So I say, go for it. I would much
if you
rather
can do it, go for it, right?
I would much rather my kids be YouTubers than go to college. And I will stand by that, telling blue in the face. And my kids are 4 and 5 or 6. Like, it's not, I'm sure by the time they're older, there'll be some new YouTube. But it's just like, it's just one of those things. It's like, it's such a great place to be creative, to grow, to show off different things that you can do. And at the same time, like, at the end of the day, every single YouTube video that exists solves someone's problems. Whether it's like my type of video that solves the problem of doing social media marketing and helping them figure out how to do something specific on Facebook or Pinterest or something like that, to someone who's doing full-on entertainment. Because the problem that entertainer is solving for somebody is, one, entertaining them and showing them a different way of living life. And so it's one of those things that's so unique and rare and awesome about YouTube. And there's a lot that goes into the other parts, like analytics and evergreen content versus right now content, and so many different things. But at the end of the day, that's why YouTube is so uniquely amazing.
Wow. Thank you so much for that detailed answer. And I love that we're sort of talking on the comparison here. So what do you think the big difference is between the way that you produce your podcast and the way that you produce your YouTube? What's the differences?
I don't know how to say this without sounding mean to podcasters. Podcasting is so much easier than YouTubing. I can say that with every honest fiber of my being.
Desiree, you're right on the right track, because I speak this from stage, and whenever I give a talk about podcasting, I say the reason I chose podcasting was simply because I didn't want to have my hair done every day. Like, that was the reality of it. But the real truth is 6 years ago, to do a YouTube video was an ordeal. You couldn't just turn on your camera in any way, shape, or form, because live stream didn't exist. So there wasn't a comfort level with the more casual style a video. So it was a production. And that was why I said, no, I don't want to do this. And that's how I ended up a podcaster.
Yeah. I mean, you can always like the difference. If like, we're going to go like YouTube versus podcasting, like I don't have to put on makeup to be on my podcast. I don't have to, have 3-point lighting and charged batteries and all of these different things. Now, some podcasts have scripts and bullets, and I don't have that. I have my loose set of questions that I always have that I reference. But like when I'm doing a YouTube video, I have to do a whole bunch of research beforehand, make sure that the information I have is as current as possible and relevant, make sure some things that are out there kind of correlate with what I'm supporting and saying, and maybe finding some new data to go with it, showing how to do something. And then I have the whole, like, I got to contour my face. I got to curl my hair. I've got to, extra brush my teeth with the fancy charcoal toothpaste, makes your teeth a little bit whiter. I got to make sure that I have on like a real bra, which is totally frustrating in the COVID world. I have to make sure that like I have on nice clothes, that my arms aren't showing weird. Like it's a whole thing. I mean, let's not even get into like chasing daylight scenario. And so it's just one of those things that's like, it's different, but both are equally rewarding and beneficial. Like there are some things I can't do on my YouTube channel that I can with my podcast. Like I can't have, if I want an actual conversion, I can't do like a 45-minute YouTube video. I can do a 45-minute podcast. My YouTube videos are usually in the realm of 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm solving a specific problem for somebody. I don't just get on and talk to people on YouTube.
I want to clarify that, because that is also a marketer's. I tell this to podcasters. If your audience are content marketers or social media marketers or any kind of marketers in the world, and you want to get that kind of like straight, like them finding out you finding something and going through in a conversionary way, you got to be under 10 minutes, like, or they won't watch it. And the shorter, the better is what I found over time.
I would think in addition to the audience, again, because I know my demographic, I have more men that watch my channel than women. Ironically, I think it's like a 65-35 split for my audience. Additionally, people come to my YouTube channel from every background, from every demographic, for every different problem that they have, because I'm showing them how to do something. Let's just use Facebook as an example. I have a video, one of my top performing videos is how to use Facebook Marketplace. A marketer isn't the only person that needs to know how to use Facebook Marketplace. One of my number one performing video is how to go live on StreamYard, like how to use StreamYard, which is my favorite third-party live streaming tool, how to use StreamYard. There are so many different kinds of people that use StreamYard. Like you've got churches, and you've got, there's a presidential candidate that uses StreamYard. There's comedians that use it. These are all different kinds of people, but I have such a respect for my audience's time. I get to the point where I'm doing things like taking out my breathing. Like me breathing is literally a waste of my audience's time, which is why I also talk so fast, which is why people are always like, Desiree, slow down.
I don't breathe. It's just, it's natural in the way that I speak. So we're good there.
Yeah,
we're going to be equally matched here. No problem at all.
It's actually been a problem I've had my whole life. I found out as an adult from my dentist, my tongue is too big for my mouth. So when you talk fast and your tongue's too big for your mouth, people are going to go, huh? At you kind of a lot. So you have to work through it as a grown-up.
I love that. Well, so it sounds like you do a lot of production on the outside. So you don't use a service. You're doing all of that work yourself.
Actually, no. I have, if we're going to divide up my process, it would divide into 3 parts: pre-production, production, and post-production. So when it comes to pre-production, that's all me. Like I have to make sure I spend a lot of time researching my titles and my topics based on the things I want to teach, which is what I use TubeBuddy for, to make sure I have the best chance for conversions and views and being found in search. Then I go through the whole production, which is lighting and recording and doing stuff. But then when I go into my post-production, quite literally from day one of having my YouTube channel, I've had an editor, because I have a very realistic understanding of my life. And my life has a lot of unique, but also common complications that a lot of mothers specifically deal with. I've done a lot of study actually into the difference between women YouTube creators who are mothers versus those who are not. The number one thing I found between women YouTubers who are mothers and who aren't is batching content. Mothers batch. Those that are not mothers don't batch. And I find it very interesting because we mothers have the understanding like at any moment, I could completely lose an entire day of work. At any moment, something can go wrong. At any moment, something could happen. And I had an extra layer of complication when I started my YouTube channel, which is my husband was in the Air Force and we lived in South Korea, which is the whole reason I started my YouTube channel. And so like I would literally like, oh, the Air Force needs my entire existence today. Well, I guess I don't get to do anything. Good thing I batched
Today we
that
get
video.
to pick up and move for a week. Yeah, and sorry, I'm done.
No, my favorite one. So these are the kinds of like quirky things that we deal with, like in military life and motherhood. So motherhood, someone is sick or needs your boobs, or you have a diaper, there's an explosion, or someone didn't sleep. Like there's all of those things. But with military life and an Air Force life specifically, because my husband works on planes, or he worked on planes, it would be, okay, we're doing drills today. So every single airplane is going to take off within 5 minutes of each other. You know how hard it is to record videos or a podcast when you have F-15s going off a mile away from your window?
Yep. That sounds, a little stressful too.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of things like I realized that I had the very deep understanding of myself and my life that I'm like, I know I have to have a YouTube channel to have success in business. But I also know how time-consuming and detail-oriented having a YouTube channel was. And I knew in order for me to have both and have success, I had to have an editor. And so since day one of my YouTube channel, I have had an editor. And it takes away this gigantic level of stress for me because I know it's going to get done and that it's going to hit the deadline. They send me the video back. And once you've got a good rhythm with an editor too, you don't often have edits after you've set up in a thing and established, like they know your flow, your graphics, all these kinds of things. And so they send me the video. And because I've done all the pre-production, which is creating my thumbnail, creating my title, creating my description, creating my keywords, it's literally just a matter of upload, hit apply, and schedule it to go up to YouTube. When
so you've lightened the post-production world by actually doing a lot of that in pre.
The hardest part of YouTube is pre-production. The easiest part is recording, which is so ironic for so many people because recording what they think is the hardest part.
They think that's the daunting part. Yeah.
Because they're like, what if I don't like what I say? What if I don't like how I look? What if I'm like, but what if you're amazing? Right? What if like you crush this? What if you can solve 10 people's problems with your one video? Like I truly believe in life that if you can help someone solve their problems, it is your moral and ethical obligation to do whatever it takes to do that. I know I can help people with their content marketing better than most people because I've been doing this for over 10 years. Like doing social media for over 10 years is the kind of old as you get in this industry. Like,
you're so ancient, Desiree.
I am an OG up in this space. It's literally on the title of my book. Okay? So it's just one of those things. It's like, and so like, I know I can help people. And so that's why my YouTube channel is so important to me. And I can't tell you, like 4 out of my 5 comments are always thank you so much because I'm solving a problem for people. And that makes me feel good. And I'm happy to do it.
Well, so I like to go into the binge factor. Do you believe you have binge listeners?
I do. And which is really weird to me since my content is so super problem specific versus a lot of sequential stuff. I'm getting more into it with tools and stuff like Facebook stuff and StreamYard stuff. But, my business people aren't necessarily going to be aren't going to really benefit from how to use Marketplace and stuff like that.
It's interesting because I think that your binge factor, the reason your podcast, Women of YouTube, is so bingeable is the fact that you don't miss out on getting that every single episode has something actionable, something different. And because you've choosing women who have such diverse YouTube backgrounds, and so they might be using it for real estate, they might be using it for a personal mission, they might be using it for various reasons. And that diversity in perspective and success definition on YouTube is exactly why it's bingeable.
Yeah, and like I said, the Women of YouTube podcast, I think, is bingeable. My YouTube channel, not so much. It's very contradictory, I know. But what I love about the Women of YouTube podcast is I'm really trying to make sure there's someone for everyone. You know, and I've been trying to find different kinds of channels, things that are traditionally male or traditionally very female heavy. I'm trying to find racial diversity. I'm trying to find age diversity. I'm trying to find life situation diversities. And it's been actually harder than I thought it would be. But also when I get to have these conversations, they're just so great, even to the point where the woman I'm interviewing is like, this is great. I never get to talk about this stuff.
Do you learn something new that you apply all the time?
You know, I'm going to say no, but that's because I'm in a very unique, weird space where I know what works for my audience and my channel and stuff. And I'm also super plugged into the YouTube community because I'm considered a YouTube partner through different things and with TubeBuddy. So I'm marinated in YouTube educators, but the things I do learn, different stories, different situations, different ways to deal with problems that I didn't ever expect before, it's been surprising for me on this interesting Women of YouTube journey.
Well, how has the podcasting journey been for you? Have you had some hiccups, some things that went wrong? What have you learned from that?
I love podcasting. I love to talk to people. My default setting is extrovert in crowded spaces. Like I tell people all the time, like, give me the Super Bowl and watch me kill it. Like, that's who I am. I love the interaction and feeding off of people and learning, which is very contradictory to how we currently have to live our lives, where I spend the vast majority with my family that I live with. And so it's a little soul crushing, but I'm working through it as best as I can.
So you're using your podcast as therapy.
Yeah, I bulk talk to people. Like I am like batched out for months on my podcast because I'm like, I just need to talk to people. But as far as like what I love it. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from people that are like, you're a very natural interviewer. You're a very natural talker. You can tell that I'm listening and I can make questions based off of what people are saying and not just sticking to like my set number of questions and stuff like that I try to use as a guide. I just love it. I mean, there's just nothing more to that. There's nothing better than having a conversation with a woman who's trying to make the world a better place.
Oh, wonderful. Well, let's hit on our 5 things. Yeah. So, especially because you've got a better marketing background than a lot of the women and men I talk to here podcasting. I'm looking forward to your answers here. So okay. What are some lessons you've learned on ways to get great guests?
Facebook groups, like very niched Facebook groups, is how I find the vast majority of my guests. I also have a unique opportunity because, again, I am partnered with TubeBuddy. I can reach out to TubeBuddy and say, hey, I'm trying to get access to this kind of person. Who do you know who's in the system? And they're able to connect me to them.
Oh, wonderful. What about ways to increase listeners?
I think that's going to go in a lot to the cross promotion. Again, having the right partners and sponsors to help you promote your podcast is going to be really helpful. Having the guests share as well, but I also believe in giving people the content to share. So I create a lot of audiograms for my podcast. I also am just sharing them in my specific community for the Women of YouTube and promoting on social in that way.
Wonderful. Produce in a professional way. A little bit different from the way that you produce your YouTube. What do you do to produce your podcast professionally?
I keep it actually pretty simple. I record on Zoom and we edit in GarageBand. I think that I come from a world, and this is a YouTube world, and I actually have a my formal education is actually in multimedia art. And we have a saying that I picked up from school, which was 80% done is better than 100% of nothing. So it's sort of like I aim for every episode to be of a good quality and maybe a little bit better every time. But it's better for it to get out there and into the world versus obsessing about it being perfect.
Wonderful advice. So what about encouraging engagement? So you have a community, you've got, your YouTube channel has tens of thousands of listeners, viewers rather. How do you encourage engagement across either the podcast community or the YouTube community?
The number one secret in marketing, because that's all that this question is you have to tell your audience what to do. It has to be simple. And it has to be one thing. Don't people try and make people do too much. Like click here, say this, do this. Like, no, pick one thing. Have a purpose for your piece of content, whether it's downloads, clicks, comment below, pick one. And that's what you want people to do. So when it comes to podcasts, I would believe that the number one thing is go listen. Here's the link to the direct podcast to go listen to. A lot of people will do like the website, like where the podcast is housed. Like for example, womenofyoutube.com is where my podcast lives. But if you want to listen to my podcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, all that stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. I love that one thing. What's the best way to monetize your show?
Honestly, in my opinion, it is a partner. So TubeBuddy is my partner in my podcast. It is a paid partnerships situation. It's not sponsors. Sponsors are totally different. Sponsors are like, they come and go. A partner is someone that it's kind of like they steadily back you for what you're doing. And then if we're going to add in a secondary layer, it's taking your listeners offline, or rather off, or how do we say it? Off the earbud?
Off channel?
Off channel.
Send them back to you.
Yeah, get out of their ears and get into their fingers and eyes. And that for me, it's taking them to my Facebook group. So I have Women of YouTube podcast Facebook group, and that's where I'm giving a different kind of value. So it's sort of this idea is like, okay, if you are a woman YouTube creator, an aspiring women YouTube creator, no matter where you are, join this group. Ask questions, get feedback. I do weekly office hours. We do monthly trainings. We have guest admins from other female YouTube educators. And it's just a really great place to be amongst your fellow creators, especially when you're not sure if you're doing it right. It's a good place to go. And so I'm able to monetize from that, from an email list, from referral marketing, affiliate marketing, that kind of thing.
So now, getting a partner in, and I love that you were able to do that from the very beginning, which many people are not able to do. They're not able to get a partnership until they've proven that they have some authority in this market. You were able to leverage the authority you had built in YouTube to be able to get the partner and move it over to a different media type. So
it actually was not that way at all. How mine worked out is the brand wanted to align with the mission.
So that's just the message. Yeah.
A lot of brands, and I think that this is one of the things that is very commonly miseducated in the podcasting space. And it's, well, how many downloads do you have per episode? Okay, based on these random numbers that someone put out somewhere, this is what I'm going to pay you on. It's like, nah, that's not going to work. But it's sort of about if you have a mission, a purpose, like your podcast does something specific, having an exclusive partner who believes in that mission and wants to align with that mission, and then they want to support it because they have a vested interest in it in that way, that's a really great way to monetize your channel. And then it's the other things that you do outside of the podcast that are going to be additional ways for you to get revenue through affiliate marketing, through additional sponsorship, through paid email posts, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the mistake that most people make, and I'm sure, is that you're very different because of you're being an extrovert, you're being so vocal, you're networking so well within your industry, is that most people just think, oh, they're just going to show up and tell me they're aligned with my mission and ask me. And that doesn't happen that often. You have to start having conversations out there, right? So that they know that they're aligned.
Yeah, there's so many things. Like when it comes to brands and partnership, again, I guess you could say I've been in a unique position where I travel a lot for a business and I go to a lot of events if I'm attending them or if I'm speaking at them. going with my partners for different things, like those alignments allow for me to have open doors and credibility. And if you can find the brands, it's like a great place to start. But one of my close friends in this space, she's a fellow military spouse. She runs this thing called the AMC. I think it's like the American Military. It's like a military spouse entrepreneur society. And she's like, LinkedIn. I find everyone I need on LinkedIn because I can have a conversation with the person who does the marketing for this brand I want to work with. I can nurture that relationship and then eventually lead it to a scheduled call, which can lead into me talking about my brand, what I think we can do together. And then they throw money at me. And that's kind of like what we all, I think, want to get to.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, wonderful. Well, if there's anything that's strategic in terms of turning your podcast into business or turning your YouTube into business, what do you think is the most critical factor and critical decision that you should make at the beginning before you start or as you start?
You have to ask yourself the very important question, and it's a two-parter. It's who do I serve and how do I give them value? You have to know exactly who you talk to, who you serve, who you can help. I got into YouTube and podcasting after being in business for 7 years. I don't think everyone needs to do it for that long. But I do know that if if I had a regret in business, it would be not getting on YouTube sooner. And I don't think I've met a single YouTuber who's ever said, oh, I wish I got on YouTube later. Because there's so many opportunities in YouTube that people don't even know. Like, people just think YouTube pays you, and honestly, if you ask any YouTuber, they'd be like, my AdSense is the lowest paying thing from YouTube, unless you get in like the million subscriber realm. But it's just one of those things. It's like, you have to know who you serve. You have to know what value you can give them, because if you don't know that, you're just going to be creating content and it's not going to be hitting the way you need it to be hitting. And so by getting really clear on that, it's going to allow for you to have less frustration and more success.
Wow, Desiree, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and coming together. Now, if you have advice, last thing, if you have advice for anyone who's a podcaster who wants to move to YouTube now, what should they do first?
You don't look weird. You sound just fine. Your butt is great. You need to get your butt on video, okay? You have to get over your self-conscious quirks, because it's who you are. You look the way you look. You sound the way you sound. You literally, physically interact with people every single day. Then YouTube is just another way to do that. There will always be more great people than bad people. And so just get started knowing that you rock and that you're going to solve someone's problems and give tremendous value to help someone out. So get started now. Get out of your own way.
Well, I'd love to add a little bonus to this episode, if that's okay with you, Desiree. You
Absolutely.
got a lot of tools. So you mentioned TubeBuddy. We'll have links for that as well in the blog post for this episode. But are there any other resource lists that you maybe have on your website and other things that we could add for our podcasters who are interested in YouTubing?
Yeah, so you can go to mrsdesireerose.com/resources. That's where I have all of the tools I use for YouTube creation and content creation, different kinds of tools for recording video, like ring lights, webcams, and also like level up stuff like 3-point lighting and a green screen and nicer cameras and stuff. And I think that's a great place to start, because it's sort of like you can just use your phone in a window in a quiet room, and that's perfectly acceptable place to start on YouTube. But I think if you're a podcaster, you have an already established level of quality that you want to maintain. And so it's just kind of like bridging that gap and building it out from there.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today. And everyone should take a listen to Women of YouTube, Desiree Martinez, and I'll have a little bit more after the break. Wow. That was so packed with all kinds of little details about YouTube and the nuances of things and the way Desiree runs her in a very concerted and pre-planned way runs both her YouTube and her podcast. I just think that that's the important part that I'd love to stress here. And I'd love to hear it when someone really can talk about that and talk about their process of how that they do that. Because I think when you do a better job at the front end of planning and knowing your audience and getting what's important to them and planning that out and do it in a purposeful way, it's faster, it's easier to be successful with that. It helps her plan out her keywords, it plan out her titles, plan out her content, what she's going to do. It makes actually everything simpler when you're that focused on what the results for the audience is going to be, getting to know them and how you bring value. She's so right about that. Women of YouTube, it's a great interview series. I absolutely have binged on it already myself, learned lots of little nuanced things that just came, little notes that I'll be making on the side as I'm listening to an episode. You're going to find the same thing as well. So you definitely want to check that out, Women of YouTube. But also I've got all the links to Desiree Martinez, to her social media programs, to her website, to TubeBuddy as well, which is one of the tools that she mentioned and the partners that she has, because that's a really interesting play if you're really starting to advance what you do on YouTube already. Also got the links to her YouTube, because you're going to want to find her on YouTube and you're going to want to check out those bite-sized, those under 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minute videos helping you do social media marketing, helping you do that content marketing, because those lessons there translate whether you're a YouTuber or you're a blogger or you're a podcaster. All of those, the advice and the tips and the tools and the things that she provides for you are going to be useful in that journey of bringing that visibility and building that community around your show and around your business and mission that you have with your podcast. So be looking for that. You can go to the blog post for this episode at thebingefactor.com. And as always, I invite you to let me know who you're binging on. What podcasts are you binging on? Do you listen to a show that's like Women of YouTube? Please make sure and send them out to me, because I want to cover the shows you actually listen to as podcasters. So again, thanks again for listening. I'm Tracy Hazard on The Binge Factor.
You've been listening to the Binge Factor podcast. For more information on podcasting and videocasting success tips and tactics, please go to thebingefactor.com. And be sure to listen to our other show for podcasters called Feed Your Brand. If you'd like to be interviewed on this show, as well as featured in Tracy's column, please go to thebingefactor.com/guest and apply.